Sorry.
Mike Agerbo here. Got my good friends Graham Williams and John Biehler. We are live in Las Vegas. We've been down to the Consumer Electronics Show here all week, checking out all the latest and greatest tech and apps and technology that's controlled by apps as well. And we wanted to share some of the cool things that we've seen this past week. But again, this show, just a lot of work and energy.
Yeah, a lot of walking.
I'm getting at least 20, 25,000 steps a day.
I'm going through about 8 Advil a day, so yeah, that's about right.
So today, we're going to talk about some cool health and beauty gear and the apps that work in conjunction with them, from like an artificial intelligent yoga mat to trackers for your grandparents to help make sure that they're actually eating, and so much more. Let's talk about cars.
Yeah.
And autonomous cars, which are coming. A big surprise announcement down here was Sony. They announced a prototype Sony car.
It's funny because we've been hearing that Apple was going to bring the Apple car to market for so long, and Sony is kind of the other Apple in the market, right? A lot of proprietary technologies. They do a great deal of research, and so now here they are with their own vehicle. The thing that really stood out for me on this one was the idea of this safety cocoon, right? The combination of sensors and supplemental restraint systems, they seem to have really put user safety as one of the predominant things here.
This car has been dubbed the Vision-S, and it is an electric vehicle. If you get a chance, Google this thing. It is incredible inside. The whole front dashboard is just a series of giant screens. So obviously great for the driver to have all that information there, but it really takes the passengers into mind here as well. So if you are in the passenger seat, there's a whole bunch of monitors there for you too, that you can be watching your favorite shows or accessing the internet. And apparently there's touchscreens for the rear passengers.
This is really smart. It does feel like the whole vehicle is now an interactive experience for everyone. And I mean, let's face it, the styling here feels very, very reminiscent of a Tesla. Right, like that idea of this very clean, very futuristic vehicular front. Very, very cool stuff. Reminds me a little bit of the Will Smith movie I, Robot? The vehicles in that, this feels reminiscent of that.
Very clean designs,
Which I think was a Sony Pictures film, was it not? Yeah, okay.
So, yeah.
So I don't know if this thing will ever hit the market. Are they just doing this as a concept to try to sell some of the technologies into other vehicle manufacturers? Maybe so. Like, I know Sony, they own Sony Music and Sony Pictures, so obviously they'd love to get their content into vehicles. And that's something we're going to be seeing with cars over the next 10, 20 years as they go to more autonomous vehicles. It'll be more about the passenger experience inside, right?
Well, and the thing is, like, getting down to that, I'm actually looking forward to relinquishing control of my vehicle. I don't want to be occupied with my hands on the wheel. I know a lot of folks out there really love the idea of driving, and I think that's going to be part of our culture for some time to come. But for me, it's about getting from point A to point B. So if I can take my hands off the wheel and let the car drive, I'm happy to do it.
Autonomous driving, a big topic down here. Intel is one of the leaders in the marketplace right now. They've done deals with a number of car manufacturers, BMW, Audi, Nissan, a bunch of Chinese car manufacturers like NIO as well, incorporating Intel autonomous technology into those vehicles. They bought a company out of Israel called Mobileye back a few years ago, and they've got a special chip that is designed for autonomous vehicles.
The really cool thing about this particular system is they designed it from the ground up to be a redundant system, in the sense that it doesn't need connectivity. It doesn't need anything other than what's already in the car itself to do all the processing in real time. In addition to that, though, it can use the cloud and other things, but not for those mission critical things like determining on whether that's a dog or a person or another vehicle in front of you. And we saw some really impressive demos of the types of things it can do in real time. Simply taking a single frame of a video from in front of the car and being able to detect how far everything is, how many different layers of people and objects and sort of things in the way, that it's able to detect just using cameras.
Yeah. And the interesting thing here, and you mentioned this, the idea of it being solely on the vehicle is actually relatively new, right? Because the whole idea here, we've heard a lot of infrastructure folks, like our cellular people, say you can't do this without 5G.
Right.
But, the idea here...
I talked to the Intel guy,
yeah,
and he said that's a load of crap.
yeah.
I won't say which Intel guy, but he says the car needs to be on its own. It can't rely on the 5G network.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be safe.
And that's the thing is, V2X, the idea of vehicle to infrastructure, of being able to report back is a nice to have, but in the absence of that, there's a safety problem if your vehicle isn't able to make its own decisions. Now, here's the question that I'm going to ask you guys. If you were given the opportunity to put something into your car that would report the location and speed and intent of your vehicle back to a network so that we did have that supplementary information in exchange for lower insurance rates, would you do it?
I'd do it.
I'd do it.
I'd do it. But it's interesting, like they're developing this technology now that you can actually retrofit cars that don't have self-driving capabilities.
That was the thing that I was excited about, because I'm kind of hoping that my current car is my last car before we get to the next stage of, either ride hailing or robo taxis, which is what they're really going for. Because this technology seems to really have a good fit for fleets of vehicles like a taxi service.
Well, can you imagine the amount of space right now that we dedicate in downtown Vancouver and downtown Toronto to parking, right? The amount of space in your home that's dedicated to housing a vehicle, your garage, your driveway. If we could say goodbye to that forever, right? And, maybe you do have a pleasure vehicle that you store out of town, that when you need it, you can summon it to you first thing in the morning and then you can drive it away. This is the future, and we're here. We talked about this stuff 2-3 years ago on this radio show, and we were saying it's going to be maybe 5-10 years away. In 5 years, this is going to be here.
Well, Intel laid out a roadmap
Yeah.
for autonomous vehicle driving. There's different levels from 1 to 5. Level 5 is full autonomous vehicle driving, so that the car completely drives itself without any human interaction. But before that hits consumers like you and I, there's got to be other steps. And one of the big next steps are robo taxis,
Right.
which is interesting. And I talked to the Intel guy who's in charge of robo taxis. I'm like, well, why? Who cares about robo taxis right now? Like, get me an autonomous vehicle. And he's like, he laid out really interesting argument for that. And he said, well, with autonomous vehicles, you don't know all the different locations. Like, you're going to make this one car and it's got to work in like London and New York and Toronto. Whereas with robo taxi fleets, they can actually pick certain cities and make them work for them.
Yeah.
And so they can test it out and make sure it works.
And the other thing as well, when you take a look at from a cost savings perspective, a robo taxi, if you've got 2 taxi drivers on shift over the course of the day, $40,000 each per year, right? You're looking at $200,000 plus over the course of a few years. Now, if you could take that and amortize that versus the price of the AI system driving the vehicle, suddenly now this makes sense. So you're able to roll this out, really perfect that technology in these limited spaces and get it to the point where now we're actually getting those cost savings. We're able to hand them back to consumers. The roadmap actually makes a ton of sense.
Apparently in Vancouver, we won't get autonomous vehicles for another 80 years before the city council allows them in. But no, just fascinating look. Again, so they're predicting within 5 years, we'll see full autonomous vehicles for consumers. And within 2 years, robo taxis.
The other interesting part of this whole process, though, is also the underlying policies that govern these vehicles when they're on the street. Intel has been a big player, Mobileye has been a big player in setting these templates that certain jurisdictions will then use to sort of, this is how we think it should go when you're interacting with these vehicles in that space. So it's interesting that all the thought process that's going into all of this other stuff that's not actually the tech for it.
Yeah.
So
it's really funny because we're down at the broadcast center here on the show floor, and it always makes me laugh. There's close to 3 million square feet of exhibit space. You wouldn't even fathom how much tech is on display here. And they always put the broadcast booths right next to the stereo guys. Like, it drives me mental.
It was funny because I was hearing the song. I'm like, oh, that's Losing It by Fisher. I love that tune. Just not at that volume when I'm trying to record a radio show.
So we're in the main hall right now, and they've put us by all the boombox and speaker guys. The other broadcast center, you know where that is? It's in North Hall, where all the car stereo people are. And it just honestly, we used to do the show over there, and the whole booth is vibrating. That's how loud it is. Anyway, so we've got a few minutes here. We told the guys to shut the stereos off, so hopefully it's a little quieter.
Speaking of boomboxes, though, did you see the old 80s format boombox is back?
Yes.
Yeah, there was a bunch of booths here that had those giant boom boxes.
Yeah, the thin ones that had the big speakers on them. I'm everything 80s is kind of back, and I'm kind of digging it.
Okay, you're gonna get one of the. Where are you gonna put that?
In the back of my DeLorean, clearly.
Do you have some D cells?
Do I ever?
Let's talk about some cool health tech that obviously works with apps as well here. This one was interesting. They won an innovation award at CES, Zibrio Smart Scale. So this is a special scale that comes with an app. You basically stand on it for 1 full minute, and it looks for patterns of stability and instability, and then essentially gives you a balance score between 1 and 10, and lights up red, yellow, or green to signify fall risk. And so, for example, a lower score is associated with an increased risk of falling in adults that are 65 plus.
So good thing we didn't have this last night.
Yeah, you're drunk. Get off the scale.
So here's the thing, though. I mean, this type of technology is actually becoming incredibly important, right? We've seen Apple with their fall detection in the Apple Watch. I think, at one point we did a review of an airbag belt.
Yes.
Right, that can detect falls and basically pops an airbag out so you don't shatter a hip, because that can be a life-ending injury. This is actually really fascinating, being able to sort of take a look at someone's balance and say, there are some inherent problems here. Did you guys happen to see the smart belt?
I've seen a smart belt before. It tells me that I'm eating too much.
And it tweets it out for you.
Yeah.
This one's actually quite neat. And I've got one coming in, so we'll be able to take a look at it. But what it does is it actually connects up to an app, and it does Gait Analysis. So it basically looks at how you're walking, and it analyzes it over a period of time and lets you know, again, sort of red, yellow, green, where your risk is for falling. And the thing about a lot of this stuff right now is we're getting into preventative technology. You're not worried so much about the airbag of protecting your hip, but it's letting you know in advance, well, maybe you should actually be walking with some sort of assistance, either a cane, a walker, maybe you need new shoes, that kind of thing. So this is some really, really great stuff. As we have an aging population, this is going to become more and more important. I think this is a great idea.
Yeah, another really cool band I saw was, again, made for seniors, and obviously the people that love their grandparents or their parents that are not as mobile anymore. This band doesn't detect things like heart rate or anything like that, but it detects patterns in what your elderly parent or grandparent is doing. So it determines when they're eating during the day, when they're sleeping, and if they're noticing that they're not doing the same actions for eating as often as they should, the caregiver, whether that's their kids or a nurse, can actually get a notification to check in on them.
It's kind of funny because I've actually got sort of the cheap and cheerful version of that. I bought my parents Apple Watches. And, there have been a couple of times where I've noticed, because we can see each other's fitness, if by the midpoint during the day, if their calorie count isn't up, I give them a call. Just hey, are you feeling okay? Sick day? Usually the answer is, I left my watch at home.
Yes.
But it's actually it's a fairly decent way. My parents are 3,000 kilometers away. It's a fairly decent way to see, are they up and about? Are they doing okay?
You just need to get that new Samsung Bali robot to follow them around the house.
Right.
Yeah, you can check in on them.
Perfect.
Okay. Remember mood rings?
Yes.
Well, there's a bracelet now called the Mood Beam Bracelet and app. Okay. And this is kind of cool for people that might, suffer from depression, and the people that are concerned about them. So this is available in the UK right now, coming to the US, I think for about 50 US. It's a wristband that works in conjunction with your smartphone. It's got 2 buttons on it, a yellow one and a blue one. And so during the day, when you're feeling happy, you hit the yellow button. If you're feeling blue, a little depressed, you hit the blue button.
Nice.
And so this will actually start tracking your moods and your feelings over the day and days and weeks as well, so that you can see how things are going at certain times of the day, but also loved ones can, if you choose to share this information, can help talk about these things as well.
Yeah, instead of having to have that difficult conversation starter of how you doing, it's I can see you're not doing so well, why don't we have a quick chat? This is kind of neat. Can I give you my game of the week?
Okay.
Really quick, because this actually ties into this. It's on Apple Arcade. It's called NeoCab, and the idea is you play almost like an Uber driver in a world that's actually dominated by Robo Taxis. And so it's a bit of a mystery, and it's an adventure game where you take on cab fares and you chat with people in there. And inside the game, you wear a bracelet that actually shows you your mood.
Really?
So it's free with your Apple Arcade subscription. It's called NeoCab. I've been playing it for a while. I really enjoy it.
Okay, let's look at a couple other things here. This was interesting, a smart yoga mat.
Of
So
course.
this is Yogify Smart Yoga Mat. It's a personal yoga instructor in your pocket. So this works in conjunction with Voice Assistant, and you basically start doing the yoga on the mat, and it will actually guide you through the different poses because it can actually see what you're doing using artificial intelligence. I know, John, you're looking at me, shaking your head right now. It's only 250 US.
It's going to shame you though.
I know, all these things just shame me. All this tech, this health and
I was gonna-
wellness tech is shaming me.
With all the fried food that's going on in here, pretty much every pose on that right now at CES is wind-breaking pose. We'll leave that there.
Okay, we still have lots to talk about on today's program. Later on, we will be talking about laptops and the devices that we carry around with us. They are going to change dramatically over the next 10 years with folding screens. I know they're kind of a gimmick right now, but we saw some really interesting devices down here that I think will actually start becoming affordable and becoming appealing to people. Also, we're going to have a look at something from Samsung called Project Neon. And this is going to freak you out. You gotta Google this. These are human avatars that look exactly like real humans and will be assistants for people to talk to, like chatbots, but humanists.
They're terrifyingly real.
Here we're in Las Vegas trying to survive. We've been at the Consumer Electronics Show for many days now, covering 3 million square feet of crazy tech. You tired,
I'm exhausted.
John?
Same.
We do this all day, and then at night we got to go to all these crazy events and parties as well, where they ply you with alcohol and chachkas to try to get you to talk about some of their gear.
Here, get on the mechanical bull. It'll be a great time.
Exactly.
Hey.
I want to talk about something really freaky now.
Yes.
And if you haven't had a chance to Google this, it's something from Samsung called Project Neon, working with a bunch of partners, including Star Labs. And these are virtual human beings that you're looking at them on the screen right now,
Yes.
right in front of us. Can you tell that these are not human?
No. Top rate guy, maybe a little bit.
The interesting thing though is these aren't just still photos like we've seen, AI generated people. This is actually motion, people doing things like fixing their shirt, adjusting their tie, all their little movements, breathing, all that kind of stuff. It looks so real in an uncanny valley kind of way, but it actually isn't that uncanny.
I was going to say, I think it's crossed through the uncanny
Yeah.
valley. There are things like, again, breathing rhythm, the way that they blink, the way that they sort of fidget a little bit. It looks like a normal human person.
They here at the show, they have these giant projections where they have these people. Then if at a distance you think it's just some video loop that they had that they
Yeah.
shot, and then you get closer and you realize like this woman like adjusting her top and other things like that, and then you're told that it's not real.
Yeah, because I mean, the things that make us human are essentially the flaws.
Yeah.
Right? The shirt's a little out of place, the hair is a little off kilter. We blink with one eye faster than the other, that kind of thing. And they've kind of nailed it with this, which, we've talked about deep fakes in the past, the idea of being able to recreate video of an existing human being. But, what happens now when you are talking to someone and you can't tell if they're real or not? Right?
Well, so what they're going to do with this this Project Neon, they're going to be able to license, or you'll be able to subscribe to Neon and get a service representative. Maybe you want a financial advisor, healthcare provider, concierge. In the future, they could be TV anchors, spokespeople, or even movie actors. Like, the technology is freaking amazing. What they've done here.
It's kind of interesting because you never see the television show Red Dwarf,
Yes.
right? There's a hologram in there called Ace Rimmer.
Yeah.
Right, and he's got a big H on his forehead, so you can tell he's a hologram. I'm wondering, do we need something that is going to distinguish the real from the unreal at some point in the near future, so that we can start to distinguish, am I talking to a human being? Do we?
It's like putting stickers on glass sliding doors.
Yeah, so the birds don't fly through.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I think this may be something that we need to talk about, because the idea that, and I will feel comfortable talking to these digital people, as it were, but I think we do need to be able to differentiate between an actual human being and something that perhaps has an algorithm or a database behind it.
I think we're going to see in the next 5 to 10 years the technology will be good enough for them to replace actors that have passed away.
Well,
Do you know what I mean?
We're seeing that with James Dean now.
Yes.
Right? There's one on the way out. I mean, I find it a little ghoulish. You know, I was good with what happened with Carrie Fisher in the new Star Wars. Quite honestly, like Peter Cushing in Rogue One looked great. Could have done without Carrie Fisher in that one, because honestly it wasn't needed. We have to kind of come to come to grips with the idea that we don't last forever, and maybe sometimes it's okay to let people go.
But then who owns that likeness? Okay, so for example, James Dean,
Yes.
we used as an example, who gets to, as a movie studio, can you just go, hey, you know what? I want to bring back Carrie Fisher.
Well, and I think that's going to have to become part of our estate. You know, who has the rights to my voice, my likeness, my mannerisms?
It also depends on what they've given up, especially from a property like Star Wars, for example. What did they sign away? And usually they're signing out their likeness in that film so they can cover off all the merchandising and all the other stuff like that. But now this is going to be their digital likeness in perpetuity, and you know they're going to want to get paid.
Like they could redo like the original Star Wars movie. Remember how young Mark Hamill was as Luke Skywalker and Carrie Fisher was and Harrison Ford? Like the technology will be here where they could continue their adventures using computer-generated actors.
Sort of after Return of the Jedi and before The Force Awakens,
Yes.
we see the intermediate adventures of the main cast and crew.
But I mean, that's going to be freaky, don't you think?
Yeah, and this really comes down to, like, are these the only stories that we have to tell?
Do we need to bring back dead actors?
I don't think we do.
And what's real and what's not anymore? Like I just watched this show from the BBC called The Capture, and it was basically about this shady government organization over in the UK redoing surveillance footage to give them evidence to put away terrorists. And so they would redo it using deep fake video, which is a thing where you can actually put people's face on actors and it looks like them.
Now you combine that with the volumetric video that we're talking about that Intel has, you know, being able to create virtual camera angles, and suddenly, what can we believe? The idea of being able to have a concrete source of video where you kind of look at it and go, okay, that's legitimate, it's going to become more important.
Yeah, so I just wonder, like 10 years from now, 20 years from now, like, will you be able to use surveillance footage, video footage anymore? Because can you trust it?
And that's the question.
Will it be able to be used in court because it's going to be able to be faked?
Well, and that's why you have companies like Adobe that are coming out with tools built into Photoshop, for example, that can detect whether or not this image has been doctored. So we're going to have that for video as well. But you can't tell if one of those Project Neon avatars looks legit and is put in a situation. I mean, we're seeing them in very studio-ish type of scenarios. What about them in a much, darker space, video games, that kind of stuff, where they just look so real at that resolution? And also all the nefarious sides, like what happens if we program a fake mic?
You're just saying things that
it's not hard.
Things
It's
that
not
Mike
hard.
would never do. Yeah. And so this is, again, it comes down to what is verifiable. There has been some talk about using things like blockchain to be able to, you create an asset and it's given a specific address inside this blockchain. And if it's not that address, then it's not the legitimate source. So just being able to copy and paste things willy-nilly can't happen.
I think we're heading into scary times, guys.
Very much.
Just from the technology I've seen here, it's exciting. Don't get me wrong. I love technology, but at the same time, as humans, we're not very good at predicting and planning for the future, as we all know. So again, very reactionary, and I just wonder, like, should we be putting some safeguards in place now?
Yes.
For things like these human avatars?
I think we should.
We're in Las Vegas still almost done. We're
Still.
want to go home.
I think they're calling me at the gate.
They are. Okay, we've got some time for some more tech here. I want to talk about the devices, the computing devices we're going to see over the next few years, and specifically when it comes to phones and laptops. Samsung and Huawei have been leading the race as far as folding screens. We've seen the Huawei Mate 10 or Mate X, and the Galaxy Fold from Samsung. These are phones that basically unfold and create one large screen. It's actually a bendable screen. So the technology is pretty amazing. The price is pretty amazing on those things too. They're like anywhere from $2,500 to $3,000 Canadian, if not more. So down here at CES, we're seeing that trend increase now. Other companies are coming out with it in the phone space, but now the laptop manufacturers are getting into the game as well. Dell, Lenovo, and many others. Lenovo has actually announced their Lenovo Fold X1, and it is beautiful. So this is a laptop, looks like a laptop shell, but you open it up and it's just all screen. So the keyboard is kind of like a touchscreen keyboard that you'd have on like an iPad, for example.
This actually makes a little bit more sense because the folding mobile device always just seemed so fragile, whereas the laptop seems like it's a much sturdier chassis for this whole system.
It's thicker, so I think it can be, and I mean it folds inherently, so you're used to the size of that device. I've got to ask, right? Apple brought out their new 16-inch MacBook Pro this year, and the big feature for a lot of people was a return to a nice, firm, responsive keyboard. And now we have a device that has no keyboard at all.
Well, this particular one, obviously you can hook up an external keyboard to it.
Fair.
But just think about it at that point. So now you can unfold this thing. And so some of these laptops, they're like a 13-inch form factor, which is kind of the average size for most notebooks. But now when you unfold it into a flat, large screen, it's a 17-inch screen. So you could get an external little keyboard and mouse that you could take with you, and you've got a giant 17-inch laptop.
And imagine this actually has to be a touchscreen on both sides.
It is, yeah.
It's got a keyboard built into it.
Dell has a really interesting take on it. They've got the same type of laptop case for it. You open it up, it's all screen.
Yep.
So you can either use a touch screen, but it also has a little keyboard that kind of clicks in place on top, like a physical one. And when it's not being used, you can basically click it underneath the unit.
I'm interested to see the folks out there who buy this, who then sort of come back to the market and say, I'm using this, and here's how it's great for me, because I'm having difficulty picturing myself using it. Like I love my tablet and keyboard combination. I love my tablet just on its own. I love my laptop. But I'm kind of looking at this and going, I'm not sure if I'm not fitting in the space where this device is, because it's beautiful. Like, it's a stunning piece of engineering, and the screen looks amazing. But I'm looking at going, who's this for?
It feels a little niche-y.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But is it? I'm thinking some type of variant of this is going to be the new laptop.
Really?
Like, it's just one giant screen. Like, they got to figure out the keyboard thing, right? Because if you're going to be doing a lot of typing, to your point, Graham, I don't think I want to be sitting typing on a touch screen all day.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I want a physical keyboard.
Yeah.
So there's got to be some way to have like a physical keyboard that comes with it that could be detached easily.
So
that's not going to have all this extra bulk and weight.
So you want one giant screen with a keyboard that folds up into something that you can take with you.
Yes.
Like the iPad and the keyboard in front of you right now.
Something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the smartphones out there. TCL showed off a prototype of their folding phone. This thing has two hinges.
A trifold.
A trifold. It's like one of those trifold pamphlets.
I feel like if you flip it out fast enough, it's going to turn into a set of nunchucks. Like, it's a little crazy.
Okay, so it's about the size of a regular smartphone, but then when you unfold it, it'll turn into a huge 10-inch tablet.
It's a Rand McNally map.
Yeah, it looks like you're unfolding a map. Okay, so this is, again, it's a prototype. They haven't announced any pricing or exactly when that they'll be bringing this out. They call it the Dragon Hinge Fold.
Of course they do.
Of course they do. I don't know. What do you think? You know, listeners at home, Google this. Again, TCL Trifold phone. I mean, wouldn't it be nice to unfold your phone into like a 10-inch tablet? Or is it?
Maybe.
But I mean, obviously it's going to be bulkier, right? That's a thick phone
Yeah.
when it's not unfolded.
Well, and this is the thing is like I look at the slab of glass and aluminum that I'm using right now, and at no point have I looked at it and said, this needs more moving parts,
Yes.
right? Like it pops out of my pocket.
Can I
use
be
it, it
honest
goes
though?
back in.
So looking at this design, it kind of actually feels like it makes more sense to me than the Galaxy Fold or the Huawei Mate X.
I would agree with you 100%.
Can I tell you why? Because the front of the screen, when it's a smartphone, is the full size. The problem with the Samsung Galaxy Fold for some people is the front screen has got a tiny little screen.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird.
Yeah, you know, you're exactly right on that.
Yeah.
So basically, you do have a fully fledged phone here when you pull it out of your pocket, and then you can kind of.
So, and the
Flip it
challenge, the challenge I have with the Huawei model is that it takes a different take on the folding.
Yes.
It basically is all screen,
Yes.
right, on one side, and so when you're just in the phone mode when it's folded up, it's still got the back that's a screen that's still kind of unprotected.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
this trifold model from TCL, when it's folded up, the back is obviously not screen.
It's the back of the phone.
It's the back of the phone.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. From a design
Okay,
standpoint.
but I'm looking at it. It's thick.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, this thing's going to take up some room in your pocket. But you know, once they start getting the thickness down, I think this could be a viable contender.
I think that's the point, though, is this, and along with the Samsung and the Huawei, they're the first kick at these cans, and so it's going to be interesting to see where this goes. We've said it before, at least they're trying something that's not just a slab of glass, trying some new things. Maybe not, you know, they're not going to be selling like hotcakes, but they're at least experimenting with to see what people want out of these types of devices.
I will say out of all three of the folding phones, I hate this one the least.
Thanks, Graham. We're down to the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. Alexa is in everything now. Voice assistants are everywhere. We've seen it in the new Samsung TVs. Pretty well all the TVs coming out will have some sort of voice assistant built into them. Sonos, of course. I saw a new bike helmet. This was actually pretty cool from SafeTech that has Alexa built into it. It has to work with your smartphone though, so you can actually, while you're riding your bike, ask Alexa for your calendar or directions or all sorts of different things.
Yeah.
Or to buy some medical supplies because you're about to crash.
There was a full-on Amazon Alexa pavilion.
Yes.
Right, you walk in and basically they've got vignettes around the room. And, you know, John had mentioned that, and I couldn't see him at the time. I could just tell that there was a bit of a douchebag chef up front. And it turns out it was Guy Fieri.
It was.
Amazing. Who is basically going on.
He's got Alexa built in.
He does.
Yes.
They've installed Alexa and Guy Fieri. It's going well. But in all of these vignettes, there were all of the Alexa-powered pieces. So in the home office, HP has a brand new monitor that has it built in. There was an Echo Show 5.
Yep.
Right?
And they had a car.
They had a car. And I looked over and I'm like, you know, you think about a vehicle that Alexa would be put into, probably like a Peugeot or a Renault, perhaps a Hyundai.
A Ford Escort.
Yeah, and it's built into a Lamborghini.
Because who doesn't want Alexa when you purchase your $300,000 Lamborghini?
A bit of me died when I saw that, and I'm not sure why.
All sorts of different types of baby tech
Yes.
that was on display has got Alexa built in. You know, for those people that hate the voice assistants, they are our future. They are literally being built into everything.
Well, and it ties into the Amazon ecosystem as well. Did you see the Enfamil always order system?
No.
It's basically got a scale on it. It says you use more of the product, it knows when you're getting low, and automatically reorders it from Amazon when you're there.
Thank God for Amazon
Right.
and Alexa. Okay, that's all the time we have left for the show. Don't forget to hit our website. We're giving away an Amazon Echo Show 8
With Alexa.
With Alexa voice assistant built into it.
Guy Fieri not included.
Guy Fieri not included. Again, getconnectedmedia.com. Go to the newsletter tab. If you subscribe to our newsletter, you get entered to win not only this contest, but all the contests going forward. We're giving away thousands of dollars of prizes. This is Mike, Graham, and John. And I want to thank Steven, who's been a big help down here in Las Vegas, helping us out. We're logging off. We'll see you again next time.